Welcome back to the Void Compass. I often get questions regarding specifics about emotional transmutation. One of those questions is, but I've already dealt with that. Why am I still dealing with this? Why is this still here? I've already transmuted it. To understand that, you need to realize something integral to this journey. You are part of a collective consciousness, one that is tied to the consciousness of the earth itself and its ever-increasing frequency. As the spirit of the earth, Gaia, if you will, as that frequency is always increasing exponentially, so is your frequency. Your signature frequency is also increasing exponentially. Humanity's consciousness is on the cusp of an exponential expansion. Not a linear expansion, not this, but this. Or this, if you will. We're at the cusp of a huge expansion. So yes, the energy is always accelerating. As a result, your human vessel, if you will, in the physical, is holding ever-increasing amounts of light. As a result of this, your awareness is increasing. Your awareness of your internal world is also increasing. So what does this mean? As you bring in increasing amounts of light into your being, increasing amounts of unconditional love through the transmutation process, more and more darkness within the field can surface and be transmuted and released. So at a certain point in your evolution, let's say 2 years ago, you could have dealt with, at the time, a huge amount of grief. And you processed it and transmuted it and gave yourself love and understanding. And then 2 years later, you find yourself confronted with the same feelings of grief or fear or anger. But how come? Haven't I already dealt with this? It's just a deeper layer of this proverbial onion that is your emotional body. You just have now reached the energetic frequency that allows you to hold space and have the capacity to transmute this deeper layer. Because that deeper layer required that much more light to transmute. So when you find yourself fluctuating and going through spaces of alternating between peace and then going back to grief, and then back to peace and then surfacing anger, and then back to peace and then feeling anxiety and nagging fears, that is not regression. That is progression. You are progressively deepening and bringing more and more energy into your inner being, consciously and unconsciously. This is absolutely part of your process. And life and soul will use the current checkerboard or chessboard of your life through the template level reality. Your higher self will move the pieces around on the board to elicit the responses out of you necessary for that emotional transmutation. The relationship with the twin is no different. through their behavior, through their choices or their actions towards you, you'll be confronted with the next layer of emotional states that you need to transmute, that you need to introduce to unconditional love. That is all that's really happening. It's a very elegant system when you really visualize it. I'll put it this way. If you are sat in a dark room and can't even see your hands in front of your face, and suddenly the light is switched on, where does the darkness go? It scatters, seemingly disappears, and is replaced by light. Light is always the victor over darkness. But in the case of the human body, because we're in a human body system, when the light is switched on and consciousness is brought deep into the body, the darkness doesn't just magically scatter, but it comes up and out and is expressed as an emotional release, whether that's yelling, whether that's grieving and crying, whether that's shaking. That is due to being in a human body system. That is how our system works. Why do I always say, bring your consciousness deep into your body? That is the path to freedom. That is the path to letting go, the path to release, the path to surrender, and to feeling the consciousness of soul. Because you are addressing everything still present within your field. You cannot do that from being up here in mind. You cannot get over grief mentally. You cannot get over anxiety mentally. Because to do that is to engage in what I like to call anti-thought. Thinking about not thinking. Thinking about not thinking feelings of grief or fear. It does not work. Not for an appreciable length of time, anyway. The only way to deal with emotional states is to go deeply within, to acknowledge and bring the frequency of unconditional love and consciousness and understanding to those parts of yourself. And again, this isn't some fix. You are not introducing unconditional love to elicit a response out of that emotional state. You are bringing unconditional love because it is unconditional. It does not require that state of being, whether it be grief, whether it be fear or anger, to be any different than it currently is in that moment. Unconditional love chooses to say to that emotional state, I love you just the way you are, without needing you to be any different to deserve and to hold and experience my never-ending love. That is a nuance that is quickly forgotten by mind. Tell me what buttons to push so I don't have to feel this way. This isn't about that. This is about loving yourself while you feel that way. As many layers as need to be transmuted, as much time as it takes to be with those states of being, to reach the other side, where you can sit deeply in your body and experience that spaciousness I so often speak about. That feeling of peace, to no longer have to long, to no longer be afraid, and to no longer feel separate from love, which was always your birthright. That is the work, and that is how it works. There's always a deeper layer until one day there won't be. And all you will be left with is a sense of peace and connectedness to the divine. Whether you're on this twin flame journey or not, the process remains the same. We are all emotionally transmuting because we are all expanding consciousness. We are part of a much larger consciousness that is also constantly expanding and gaining awareness of itself through our human experiences. That is how integral we are to all that is. That is why this process is so important to complete, and why your soul goes to such great lengths to get you to awaken, and why everything you're going through is so intentional and not an accident or some random sequence of events that you are victim to. If you need support with learning how to do this, if you're not quite sure, reach out to me. Join me in a session and I'll guide you through it. All the information is in the video description, as it always is. I'm going to leave it there, but I will see you next time on The Void Compass with more.